Support for our podcast comes from Symphony 3, which has announced exciting news. It's launched its innovative Smart Glue platform on the AWS marketplace. That makes the secure and affordable integration solution accessible to government agencies worldwide. The platform includes over 50 pre-built connectors specifically designed for public sector systems, government APIs, enterprise solutions and AWS services to transform citizen experiences by breaking down data silos. Smart Glue delivers operational excellence for local governments through cost reduction, process optimization, improved decision-making and scalable architecture, all while maintaining comprehensive security and compliance standards required by public sector organisations. Get in touch to see how Symphony 3's expanded team and solutions can support your goals. Head to symphony3.com to find out more. Coming up on the Local Government News Roundup, perceptions of corruption run high in Victorian councils. New cat containment laws come into effect in Melbourne. New South Wales Council rate pegs revealed for next year. Shoalhaven's controversial CEO appointment. A milestone for a local government employment program. Townsville Council chooses postal voting for its mayoral by-election. And England's councillors to be allowed back into the sector's pension scheme. All of that and more just ahead on Australia's #1 local government podcast. I'm Chris Eddy, back with a curated selection of news from and about councils from Australia and beyond. Also today, Councillor Moira Berry, Chair of Peri Urban Councils Victoria, is here with a plea to state and federal governments for support for housing development in some of the state's rapidly growing but potentially overlooked council areas. The Local Government News Roundup is brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, with the councillor census about to hit inboxes for every Victorian councillor. And support comes from Symphony 3, simple, connected customer experiences. It's Wednesday, the 1st of October, and this is edition number 498. Welcome along. A new survey by the Independent Broad-Based Anti-Corruption Commission has revealed alarming perceptions among Victoria's elected officials. The majority of state MPs and local councillors believe corruption is a significant problem in Victoria, with more than half saying it exists among elected officials. Nearly 90% of responding MPs and over half of councillors consider their own organisations vulnerable to corruption. IBAC Executive Director Dr. Linda Timothy says the findings highlight the need for stronger corruption resistance measures. The survey identified different corruption risks prioritised by each group, with MPs most concerned about inaction, such as failing to report wrongdoing, while councillors flagged favouritism and nepotism as their top concerns. IBAC says the results will help target prevention efforts to build Victoria's integrity systems. Melbourne Racing Club is pushing ahead with its plan to sell a $195 million portion of Caulfield Racecourse to Mount Scopus Memorial College, despite an ongoing dispute with Glen Iris City Council. According to a report from The Age, the Racing Club has taken the council to VCAT, challenging a $3 million public open space levy imposed on the subdivision permit required for the sale. In tribunal submissions, the MRC suggested the deal could be at risk if the levy remains. But when contacted by The Age, a spokesperson assured the transaction remains firmly on track, regardless of the tribunal's decision. A decision on the levy dispute is expected soon. The Mayor of Monash City Council, Paul Klesaris, has urged residents to have their say on state government proposals to increase building heights up to 16 stories in Oakley and 12 stories in Hughesdale. Councillor Klesaris raised concerns about insufficient planning for supporting infrastructure, saying the government has not spelt out its plan to deliver open spaces, schools and health services to support the growth. He said the council will continue advocating on behalf of the community, but that it was crucial for local residents to make their voices heard as well before the October 19 deadline. From today, new rules for cat owners come into effect in the City of Melbourne. Cats must now stay on their owner's property from 6pm to 8am, be desexed and avoid sensitive areas like waterways and major parks unless properly restrained. The reform has been introduced as part of the City of Melbourne's Domestic Animal Management Plan and aims to protect native wildlife from cats' hunting instincts. Roaming pet cats kill an average of 110 native animals each year and have contributed to potential extinctions of hundreds of species globally. Central Goldfields Shire Council has adopted a new general local law replacing the 10-year-old regulations with several key changes. Shopping trolleys are now under stricter control, with retailers required to implement regular collection systems and retrieve abandoned trolleys within 12 hours of being notified. A blanket ban on dogs in retail areas has been lifted, though responsibilities to control pets and clean up after them remain in place. The updated law also addresses community concerns about building site cleanliness, nature strip plantings and dilapidated buildings. Additionally, drone enthusiasts should note that flying at Maryborough Aerodrome now requires permission under the new regulations. Council CEO Peter Harriott said the changes reflect community feedback gathered from over 180 responses during consultation. Checking out some of the council-related stories making news in local press, the Latrobe Valley Express has reported on a debate by Latrobe City Council about a $30,000 CBD community outreach program planned to combat concerns about crime rates in Morwell. The council remains divided between implementing immediate community-based solutions and waiting for input from the police minister, who has yet to commit to visiting the region. It has deferred a decision on the program until November. And Channel 10 and the Herald Sun are among those reporting on a proposal at the City of Melbourne to update CCTV policy to allow monitoring of buskers performing in the wrong places, as well as graffiti, dumped rubbish and after-hours construction. The updated policy is expected to go before councillors in the coming weeks. More council news in brief. The Lost Dogs Home will continue to look after stray animals in Moonee Valley after the council voted to award the organisation a new 5-year contract. Wyndham City Council's Love Your Local campaign, launched in 2024 to promote local businesses and encourage residents to buy locally, has received Main Street Australia's National Award for Best Council Traditional or Digital Marketing Campaign. The award was announced at a ceremony held earlier this month. And construction has begun on the City of Warrnambool's first pump track, funded through a $150,000 state government grant. The pump track is expected to open for the summer holiday period. Moving on now to New South Wales, and IPART has announced the council rate pegs for the 2026-27 financial year. The core rate pegs range from 2.5% to 4.2% for the state's 128 councils, with an additional population growth factor provided to 83 councils with increasing populations. That's to ensure that those councils' total rates income per capita keeps pace with population growth. While the rate peg sets the maximum percentage by which councils can increase their general income, it's ultimately up to each council to decide whether to implement rate increases. Andrew Constance has been appointed as the new Chief Executive Officer of Shoalhaven City Council. The former state member for Bega has held several senior ministerial portfolios in New South Wales, including finance, transport and roads, and as treasurer, but he does not have a background in local government. Mayor Patricia White said he'll bring a deep understanding of regional issues, infrastructure and community engagement to the role. Not everyone is impressed with the appointment, however. Federal MP Fiona Phillips has criticised the appointment as jobs for Liberal mates and told the Daily Telegraph she would be raising the matter with the local government minister. Ms Phillips narrowly defeated Mr Constance in the 2022 election for the seat of Gilmore before retaining the seat more comfortably this year. Mr Constance commences at Shoalhaven next week, taking over from interim CEO Brian Barrett, who has served in the position for 2 months. Inner West Council has narrowly approved a controversial rezoning proposal aiming for 30,000 new homes over 15 years. The Sydney Morning Herald reported that the 8-7 vote followed hours of debate last night, with chanting, cheers and boos from the public gallery. There were some changes to the plan to boost capacity for social and affordable dwellings. There are reports of shock and frustration from some families in Sydney's west as Campbelltown City Council introduces entry fees at the popular Billabong Parklands. News.com.au reported that the facility has been free to use during its first year, but will begin charging visitors from this week, with a family season pass costing $949. Daily entry fees of $8.10 for adults and $5.40 for children will apply during the summer months, but it's the 6-month passes that have caused the most community backlash. The council has defended the new fee structure, saying it's necessary for the financial sustainability of the $40 million facility, which costs around $2.8 million annually to operate. Residents of Bayside Council in Sydney are facing further reductions in postal services, with the Kingsgrove Post Shop set to close its doors next week. The closure follows last year's shutdown of the Rockdale Post Office, where only post office boxes remained operational, but now even those services are scheduled to end in November. The council has voted to take action, announcing they'll contact both the Federal Communications Minister and Australia Post's CEO to voice community concerns. Blue Mountains Mayor Mark Greenhill is calling for free PFAS blood tests for local residents following contamination of the area's water supply. The Blue Mountains Gazette reported that the Mayor was seeking the support of councillors for a request to the New South Wales Health Minister for voluntary blood sampling and publication of the results. Mayor Greenhill is also seeking an investigation into the mental health impacts on residents in affected areas, and he's requested a thorough environmental assessment of contaminated waterways. The redevelopment of Yass Valley's Crago Mills precinct will not proceed beyond the first stage, with the council deciding to discontinue stage 2, which was to include commercial premises. The decision was prompted by financial concerns and is expected to save the council around $15 million over the next decade. The existing administration building will be demolished and $500,000 allocated for landscaping the open space with environmentally sensitive features. Stage 1 of the project, which includes a new library, administration building and public car park, remains on track for completion late this year. And the New South Wales Government's Fresh Start program has reached a milestone, with 500 apprentices, trainees and cadets now working in New South Wales councils. It's part of a $252.2 million investment to employ 1,300 positions over 6 years. More than 60% of those positions are in regional and rural councils. One example is Parkes Shire Council, which has secured funding for 11 new positions through the program. It's filled roles for a small plant apprentice, parks and gardens apprentice, apprentice plumber, concrete apprentice and work health and safety trainee. There are still 3 roles that need to be filled under round 1 for an apprentice electrician, a cadet planner and a civil engineering cadet. Let's grab some more New South Wales Council briefs. The New South Wales Government and Lismore City Council are planning the repurposing of over 500 flood buyback properties across 50 hectares of land that can no longer be used for housing. Community input will be sought throughout next year as part of a precinct planning process. Mid Coast Council is conducting a comprehensive assessment of koala health and habitat use in the Butawa Dam area through a research initiative involving tracking collars and health assessments. It aims to guide evidence-based management by monitoring disease levels, breeding rates, habitat utilisation and impacts of factors like water availability and lantana on the local koala population. And Wallandilly Shire Council has hailed the approval of the Appin Contributions Plan, which will fund $1.36 billion in essential local infrastructure. The 30-year developer-funded plan will deliver playing fields, parks, roads, stormwater systems and community facilities to support approximately 56,000 residents in 18,650 homes. This is the Local Government News Roundup for Wednesday the 1st of October, brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association with support from Symphony 3. News out of Queensland now, and Townsville City Council has voted to hold its upcoming mayoral by-election via postal vote, a move set to save ratepayers more than $230,000. The decision passed 8 votes to 2 at a special council meeting held on Monday to deal with the issue following Troy Thompson's surprise resignation last week. Acting Mayor Anne-Marie Graney said the postal vote option was recommended based on cost considerations, ease of attendance and voter fatigue following recent state and federal elections. The full election with pre-polling and voting booths would have cost ratepayers nearly $1 million. Already known to be contesting the election, according to the Townsville Bulletin, are Hinchinbrook MP Nick Demetto and Mr Thompson, whose previous actions were criticised during the council meeting for costing ratepayers hundreds of thousands of dollars, according to the acting mayor. The council's recommendation will now go to the local government minister for review. She will also set the election date, which is expected to be within about 8 weeks. Plans for a synthetic athletics track at Toowoomba's $315 million sports precinct in Charlton have been put on hold, according to the Toowoomba Chronicle. It follows the state government's announcement of a $1 million investment for a similar facility at the University of Southern Queensland. Toowoomba Regional Council's Environment General Manager Nick Hauser told councillors at last week's meeting that there likely isn't demand for 2 elite running tracks in the region. The council had previously voted to accelerate the track and field components of the multi-precinct project, moving athletics from Stage 7 to Stage 2 in the master plan. The Queensland Government has directed the Queensland Competition Authority to review Unity Water and Urban Utilities water prices in a 2-stage process running until 2030. The entities are jointly owned by multiple councils across southeast Queensland. The government says the overdue review aims to deliver more affordable water bills for over 2.4 million Queenslanders by examining productivity, cost efficiency, service standards and pricing. Stephanie Laycock has been sworn in as the youngest ever councillor of Somerset Regional Council at the age of 27, following her victory in a by-election. As a third-generation resident, she expressed dedication to advocating for residents and working with fellow councillors to promote strategic planning for Somerset's future. And Brisbane City Council has appointed Juliette Alabaster as the new CEO of City Parklands, managing Roma Street Parkland and Victoria Park, Barrambin. Ms Alabaster brings experience as Chief Operating Officer at Brisbane Economic Development Agency and as a City Parklands board member. Checking in on some news from other parts of the country. In Tasmania, Hobart City Council has voted to audit all outdoor dining permits across the city following a concerning incident on Criterion Street where a truck collided with cafe furniture. Pulse Tasmania reported that CCTV cameras caught the moment the truck struck council-owned planter boxes and a fence, pushing tables and chairs into patrons. Fortunately, no injuries were reported. Alderman Louise Bloomfield, who proposed the motion, which passed by 9 votes to 1, told the council the audit aims to address what she called barrier creep, where businesses gradually extend furniture beyond approved boundaries. The audit will involve reminders to businesses about permit conditions and spot checks, and officials confirmed it will be conducted at no additional cost to ratepayers. Meanwhile, the council has unanimously approved a $9,000 grant to replace war memorial plaques that were vandalised earlier this year. The plaques, which honour fallen soldiers at Soldiers Memorial Avenue, were stolen and later dumped outside Bellerive Police Station, with most of them suffering damage. The council will also contribute $2,000 worth of fabrication crew time to help reinstall the plaques. And in South Australia, an Adelaide businessman has been fined for smoking outside his tailor shop in the CBD, according to ABC News. Joseph Uzumsu pleaded guilty to 6 counts of breaching an Adelaide City Council bylaw after being caught on CCTV or observed by council staff. There was also a complaint from a member of the public. He'd been fined for 5 similar breaches in the past. And the City of Salisbury Council's Walkleys Road Corridor residential development has achieved South Australia's first 6-star Green Star Communities rating for a fully residential community. The development sets a benchmark for sustainable neighbourhood design, with features like recycled water systems, solar power generation and affordable housing options. Civil construction is set to begin in the new year, with planning approval currently being sought. Still to come today, Roundup Extra with my guest, Councillor Moira Berry from Moorabool Shire Council. She's also the chair of Peri Urban Councils Victoria. But first, our global report, and reports have emerged from the UK Labour Party conference this week that councillors in England will be allowed back into the local government pension scheme. Councillors were barred from the scheme in 2014 under the Conservative government at the time. The UK Local Government Association has welcomed the announcement, saying it's something they've long been calling for. An LGA spokesperson said reinstating councillors to the scheme is an essential step in recognising their dedication and service to communities. Calls have emerged to delay next year's inaugural Norfolk and Suffolk mayoral election until 2027. The Eastern Daily Press reported that the Green Party in Norwich is pushing for the postponement to align with planned voting reforms. The current election is scheduled for May next year and would use the first-past-the-post system. However, the Labor government has announced plans to introduce a supplementary vote system through its English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill. The eventual mayor will receive significant powers over transport, skills and planning, along with £37.4 million in annual funding. City councillors were set to discuss the proposed delay at a full council meeting this week. In the US, New York City Mayor Eric Adams has officially abandoned his re-election bid. MSNBC reported that Mayor Adams made the announcement Sunday in an 8-minute video posted to social media. Running as an independent, he had been trailing in the polls against his opponents. There's been speculation that Adams might accept an ambassadorship to Saudi Arabia in the Trump administration, though he's previously denied receiving any formal offers. It brings to an end a tumultuous period in which Mayor Adams faced bribery and campaign finance charges from the Department of Justice, though those charges were later dismissed with prejudice by a federal judge. In a classic Silicon Valley versus City Hall showdown, a new app designed to help San Franciscans avoid parking tickets was shut down by officials just 4 hours after launching. The app, called Find My Parking Cops, allowed users to track the real-time location of parking enforcement officers throughout the city. It was created by local developer Riley Walls, who used public city data to power the service. San Francisco's Municipal Transportation Agency quickly responded by altering its website to block access to the citation data, effectively rendering the app useless. A spokesperson cited employee safety concerns for the decision in an email to the San Francisco Standard. In Canada, the rural community of Sunbury, York South in New Brunswick is facing a leadership crisis after Mayor David Haywood announced his resignation during a council meeting on Tuesday night, just after his return from a 90-day suspension for Code of Conduct violations. CBC News reported that his departure means the council, already operating at less than full strength, can no longer form a quorum. The Local Governance Commission has appointed a supervisor to oversee municipal operations until October 27. After that, another provincial supervisor will be appointed until municipal elections in May next year. The municipality has had 4 councillor resignations since January, and its chief administrative officer was terminated and is facing charges under the Local Governance Act. And from New Zealand, the Ruapehu District Council is calling for an end to aggressive behaviour directed at both contractor staff and election candidates in 2 separate incidents that have raised concerns about public conduct in the district. Workers from Green by Nature, a community and recreational facilities contractor, have faced verbal abuse while performing routine maintenance. The incidents appear to be linked to misinformation about the council's recent budget overspend, and the abuse has been serious enough to warrant police involvement. Meanwhile, Chief Executive Clive Manley has condemned harassment directed at local election candidates, including personal confrontations and vandalism of campaign billboards. Mr Manley stressed that such behaviour has no place in a functioning democracy and discourages qualified individuals from standing for office. And Grey District Council says it's cautiously optimistic about the government's new risk-based approach to earthquake strengthening, which could reduce costs and improve feasibility for building owners in Greymouth's CBD. The changes would mean buildings under 3 stories in towns with fewer than 10,000 people may no longer need strengthening or warning notices after securing their facades, potentially benefiting the 127 quake-prone buildings in the district. That wraps up our news roundup for this edition, your Wednesday 1st of October edition, but don't go anywhere just yet. It's time for Roundup Extra. Delighted to have Councillor Moira Berry from Mooraboolshire and the Chair of Peri Urban Councils Victoria joining me on the Local Government News Roundup. Welcome, Moira.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here for my first time on Local Government Roundup, so looking forward to our little chat.
There's a new report out from the Regional Australia Institute, which is talking about a target of 40% of new homes to be built in regional areas. How realistic a target is that, Moira, for Peri Urban Councils?
I think it's a little bit of a difficult target, but we've always said we we'll work with the government in the housing crisis and to build new homes wherever we can. With Peri Urban, we have to look at it a little bit differently because we are unique. We're not urban and we're not regional. So we're prepared to work with that target that Regional Australia Institute are talking about and discussing, which we have been for a long time.
Right. Can we perhaps deal with this definition of peri-urban firstly, because you think the definition needs to change or be clarified in some way, don't you?
Yes, we certainly do. In fact, how the definition of the peri-urban came about, it was through a delegation meeting we had with Catherine King, the federal MP for infrastructure and transport and etc. And it was actually Catherine who said to us, can we build a definition around peri-urban? Because it is a difficult one. If you look at, we know what urban is, we know what regional is, but the in-between, which we call peri-urban, is very, very different. It's unique. We've got tourism areas, we've got agricultural areas, our food source areas. So Catherine asked us to go away and come back with a definition of peri-urban. So we've been working on that in the last couple of months, and we will be catching up with Catherine at the next delegation end of October.
What is the risk here of not having a clear definition? Is it because my perception would be you hear a lot of talk about housing developments in metro areas, you hear a lot about growth of regional areas. Is it the risk that peri-urban areas get missed out in the middle?
Yes, it can be a mixture of things, Chris, with the mixed landscapes in our areas, the peri-urban areas. So, for example, Moorabool here has got agriculture. We have got a little bit what they're terming as urban, as in Bacchus Marsh, and then it spreads out to farms and smaller towns right throughout the area. To protect our agriculture, as I said, then we've got other areas that are living on the seaside, so the Surf Coast and Bass Coast, and then you've got Bawbaw, who've got very large towns and then spread out into smaller country areas as well. And that's the reason why we'd like to protect those areas. We're happy, we can perhaps find areas for these houses, but we do need to protect the areas.
Yeah, so you've mentioned a few of them. So there's 5 in the group, aren't there? Surf Coast, Golden Plains, Moorabool, Bawbaw and Bass Coast. Have they just sort of naturally collected together? Are there other municipalities that could also make the case you're making, do you think?
Yeah, there's actually, Chris, 9 shires that are peri-urban councils. So you named the 5 that are member councils from quite a few years ago. I think peri-urban's group started in about 2007. I'm not sure how exactly they got together, but decided with the growth that was going on, and they set up this group. But then slowly down the years, I think Macedon Rangers joined. There's Murrindindi, there's Mitchell, and Yarra Rangers, I think, besides those 5 that you mentioned.
Right, so they would also meet that definition, but they're just not members of the peri-urban councils
Definitely.
group.
But who would meet the definition of what Catherine King's talking about is actually Australia-wide. So we've had a round table meeting with all peri-urban councils that wish to attend. So we invited all national councils that are in peri-urban areas, so growth areas. They're not all similar to Victoria, so the different shapes of the states and where their capitals are placed. However, they're all going through the similar issues that peri-urban councils Victoria are going through. So that growth, that changing the unique character, and a lot of them do tend to be in the tourism area once you get outside the urban areas.
Makes perfect sense. Are any of those councils in other states that meet the definition part of member alliances like yours, or is this a unique grouping in Victoria?
No, there are some of the other states that do have, I just can't think of the name of them, but they do have similar, they might not have the peri-urban word in it, but they are very similar groups with growths around their capitals.
You talked a bit earlier about the agricultural contribution of your councils. In fact, the peri-urban areas in Victoria are supplying not that much short of half of Melbourne's food needs and about 80% of the vegetable needs. How do you reconcile this need for more housing with the need to protect that clearly very important and valuable agricultural land?
Well, I'll give our example for Bacchus Marsh. We've got a huge agricultural area in a farming of lettuce, fruits, for example, when you come into the start of our shire. So you come off the freeway when you leave urban areas and you enter to our Avenue of Honour, and there's all those lovely food sources that are growing. Mind you, you did mention supply to state. One of our major food suppliers is a lettuce farm called Tripod Farmers, and they supply nationally as well. So then the need there, they were concerned. They had approached me and said, we're really frightened that the government could come in and take over our land. However, there has been an overlay being worked on and put in place for the agricultural areas around here. And I understand at the same time it's also Werribee, but they're in the urban area. So they're the sorts of things that we work on as well. We have got large sparse open land in a lot of these peri-urban councils. So there's areas that you might look at and think, oh, they're not suitable for housing. But when you actually go and investigate, and you look around the world, around Australia, there's a lot of new home developments in hillside areas. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a balancing act, isn't it? And I know you've called for significant funding from state and federal governments, about $320 million in total. What would those funds, in your mind, be put towards?
You did mention 320 million. We're speaking specifically to advocacy around 230 million for Capital Grants Fund. That's to support livability and amenity projects in peri-urban communities. And then there's the $90 million Future Fund. That's with a loan capacity. So for peri-urban councils to borrow against developer contribution plan agreements, and then the ability to pay back the funds once the infrastructure, such as roads and essential services, including water and power, are in place.
So a way to bring forward that expenditure, that's obviously a mechanism that you don't have access to now, is that right?
We don't have direct access to it because it's the developers that control that. So when they set up all the documents for the development areas, the developers agree. So they sit down and they'll agree that, yes, we'll put the roads, for example, we'll put a roundabout in place. And this is one perfect example in Baw Shire. And they were a little bit of the guinea pig with this developer contribution plan. So when they put the plans together, the roundabout, don't quote me exactly on their figures, was something like $1.5 million to support the infrastructure to join that new development up to existing developments. So the developers went about building the homes and everything, but when it came, so it was 10 years down the track, for example, when it came time to build this roundabout, they didn't have the funding because the costs had gone up astronomically. They'd gone up to around $3 million. So hence that roundabout still hasn't been built to this day. So that's why the peri-urban groups has come up with this future fund idea for $90 million. The government gives it to us, but they get it back. So those types of things can be built before they start building those developments.
Have you had any indication from the government on whether they would be amenable to this idea? Any early signs?
Yeah, we have. They've actually, Sonia Kilkenny, the minister, has praised us in all our work, and it certainly is on her table. She's told me, we had a quick meeting. She had a visit out to Moorabool Shire, and she has told us that document is in the pile of documents she's got, but she thinks it's a great idea. She did support it. We've had that support from Catherine King, and I think that's where the definition of peri-urban, for us to go away and bring that back to the table, and we'll build a memorandum of understanding around that, and hopefully that's all completed, and when we see Catherine at the end of October, that this will start the process. I'm feeling confident that something will come out of our proposals, our advocacy around the $230 million capital grants. And that one's more for amenity and livability. So when these people move out to these areas, they've got their community centres in place, and amenity projects in the peri-urbans all ready to go, because after all, these people are moving out from large areas in urban areas that have got everything. They've got their infrastructures in place, their roads around the areas, so their expectations are they should be in place when they come out. And we'd like that too, to create better traffic flows in our areas too.
Yeah, you make a very good point, and some promising signs there in what you've described about those ministerial reactions. You make a good point about expectations, and as growth occurs, those expectations only grow with them, don't they? And I see the figures just of your member municipalities with estimates of 50% growth by 2036, which is not that far away. When you think about it, accelerated to some extent by COVID. There's got to be some immediate action, though, doesn't there? What do you want to see happening, like on the ground now, that's not happening already to meet those growth demands?
Well, I think the land does need to be enabled, so land does need to be opened up immediately, but we can only do that with support from the government through me speaking to these funds, because we're large in area, but as far as rate capacity goes, we're quite small. If you compare us to the larger, I'll give you examples, Melton, Wyndham, they're huge. Their rate capacity is enormous compared to ours. However, when you look at the growth that's occurring in peri-urban areas, it's growing much faster than any of those larger areas in the urban areas.
Well, I really appreciate you explaining that to us, Moira, and wish you well with your endeavours there at both the federal and state levels, calling for investment in new livable peri-urban communities as a matter of priority with the growth that's happening. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Chris, for your invitation.
My thanks to Councillor Moira Berry from Peri Urban Councils Victoria, my guest today on Roundup Extra. That's our show for this Wednesday, the 1st of October, edition number 498. Thank you for downloading and listening. You can find out more information about the episode, including the story links, at lgnewsroundup.com. Our podcast is brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, the national broadcaster on all things local government, with support from Symphony 3, simple, connected customer experiences. The Roundup is recorded in the city of Greater Geelong, Victoria, on the land of the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. We come your way every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and I'll be back with more very soon. Until next time, thanks for listening and bye for now. The VLGA's Victorian Councillor Census is back again in 2025. All councillors in Victoria will be emailed the census on the 6th of October and will have until the end of the month to complete. In its second year, the annual census captures and tracks councillor demographics, attitudes and the key challenges to local governance over time. You don't need to be a VLGA member to participate, and at no stage will the VLGA have access to an individual's responses. The findings of the census will inform, influence and lead conversations across local government and with other tiers of government, and all responses will be fully confidential. This is your chance to have your voice heard as a councillor. The Councillor Census is part of the VLGA's commitment to support councillors on their journey to be successful community representatives.